So I think system architecture is really important, and people who tend to think systematically pay more attention to those things. In my experience, human life is not very systematic. And what I would say is you have to look at, is it flexible? So can you turn pieces of it up and turn pieces of it down? Can you make them bigger or smaller when you need to? Can you respond to changes in your political system? You have an election coming up. We do too. And we're always at risk of things changing politically. And we can say, well, we need this infrastructure to be in place, but without political will, it may be true that those aren't enough, that they're not sufficient. You need to figure out how to make the systems responsive. So if somebody needs more than just what we would normally call a person-centered plan, how would you build that and what would you do for that? I also think culture matters. I think, what's your community like? Is your community the kind of place where people value their neighbors and they want to know? I mean, somebody once said, something I read somewhere that said, a community is a place where somebody needs a little help and somebody else knows who that is. Well, there's nothing in those four structures that would create that kind of responsivity in a community, and yet that's a really critical piece of really having self-determination in the world. It almost seems like a paradox that if you really want to have personal freedom and self-determination, your goal should be to be supportive to other people in your community so that they will be supportive to you, and you begin to create this sort of wave action of people paying attention to, gosh, that person really has a lot of trouble getting over that curb. Oh, I should call the city and tell them they need to fix that curb because it's, there's a giant pothole, and if you have a wheelchair, you can't get through that intersection. Well, how many people even notice that unless they happen to be the guy in the wheelchair? And if you're in the pothole, it's already too late. So you sort of need to have a community where people think about these things and care about them. Can you have an enabling state when you also have a strong bureaucracy? That really should be the goal, that those two things go together. But it would be possible to say, well, we're not going to work on the community because we're just going to provide budget so these people can buy everything they need. And you can't buy community. No, you can't. You have to build it. It's a cooperative enterprise. And so maybe there's tension there, but maybe that would be something that we could think about or talk about more, is how do we make sure that as we're paying for services, we are not at the same time creating walls that are keeping community out, or giving the community the idea that you don't have to think about this. We have paid people to think about it. So you're not really welcome to try to problem solve because, we have social workers who are problem solving. I mean, I think that may be part of our problem in more advanced countries, is we tend to think of everything as an economic exchange, and it's probably a community exchange. It's probably a giving back.